I think the most important thing is really actually financially stress test it. Right. So you need to have certainly enough money in reserves. But I think very often people are just like, well, I've done the math on a spreadsheet, right? But next month you're not spreadsheeting it. Next month you're actually living on that income. Right. So I have an idea. Why don't you try and live on that income for 6 months and see how that goes? Mm-hmm. And so I think far too often people, ready, fire, aim. And I think that they need to spend much more time in ready, aim, fire.
Right. How's it going, guys? It's a pleasure to be here today. And who I have with me is somebody that everybody knows. That would be the lumberjack landlord. His fame precedes him. And we're going to talk about the things that this young man has gotten himself into over the last year, because a year ago to the date nearly, he finally quit his W-2 income job that we harassed him for keeping for years when he was well past the point of retirement. Matt, it's been a year since you retired. What have you been up to?
Well, I mean, it's always like they say, you always find something to fill the time. Kids, ironically, 4 kids is enough to fill the time. So lots of time with my wife, changing up the business, kind of what we've been doing in the business. You're last on the list to get retired, but we'll do that for you. You'll do that soon enough. But yeah, it's a huge blessing to close a chapter that was a 27-year long chapter in my life. It's true what they say, you leave and they do forget you quickly. I left, and I think I heard from people the first week. And these are people that I hired to bring all the way to executive level. And didn't hear from them kind of after that week or two. So you look at it and you say, hey, I made all these sacrifices. I made all these investments. It's easy to get bitter, but you just recognize and you go, hey, I didn't do it for them. I did it because it was my job. It was the right thing to do. And that's the blessing that I had, was having a great job that I just had to put the effort into. But you recognize that that's what really changes for you quickly is, it really becomes, life really is what you make it. And I think that the opportunity to close that chapter after 27 years was such an immense blessing. And then you get to the other side of it and you say, my very first day retired was here at this event last year at the One Rental at a Time event. In that last year, I've gotten to spend a lot more time with my kids, even though I used to spend quite a bit of time. I'm probably top 1% of dads that spends time with his kids now, which I love. Because then you get to see them grow, you get to see all that stuff. But then just even then in the business, new challenges, new things that you could take on. We did a big project where we're redeveloping a jail, having to get the special permitting that we needed to do that. And then on top of that, be able to, we believe a lot in the military and our service people like yourselves. Thank you. That do the really important stuff and go into the nasty and naughty places with the bang bangs. And so, we always wanted to give back. And one of the biggest challenges that we've seen in our market has been not in my backyard, and we're not going to do that type of housing here. And so being able to get ADA units approved, for disabled vets has been just something that's been really awesome to be able to be a part of. And it's only a start. It's only 2, but we had to start somewhere, and someone had to start with something. Right. And so excited to do that. And that long-winded answer of it I've been retired a whole nother year now. So,
it's amazing because we're here at a real estate convention right now. We're at Michael Zuber's second One Rental at a Time celebration. Sure. And most of the people who are here that are interested in investing in real estate are looking to achieve the type of financial freedom that would allow them to live a life similar to where you're at now. They can spend more time with family. They can work on passion projects that they might have. And I think that sometimes when people get wowed by the amazing messages and the speakers talking about everything that they've put together and the portfolios they've built, sometimes we forget to talk about the worst of the worst that we sacrifice to get there.
Sure.
And I mean, I'd love to hear, what were your biggest sacrifices? What did you and Ashley give up and you watched other people partake in? And what did it take to get to be where you were retiring a year ago?
Good food. When we started early, and that was the kind of the biggest blessing of this whole entire trip was being able to present with my wife. And she was along for the journey. I got into real estate a few years before we met and got married. But the great financial crisis hit right after we got married. So she went from dating and marrying a guy with a pretty good trajectory, who's pretty successful, to a guy that said, "Hey, so let's do ramen again, or let's do spaghetti again, or hey, it's Thursday night, it's dollar menu night, let's go." So I think that the thing that we sacrificed was everything. Yeah. It was time with each other. It was, in many cases, peace of mind. No vacations. We were married for 5 years before we took our first vacation. And even that vacation was done on a $1,000 budget, which took us forever to save up. Just had to wait for my wife to stop bouncing checks, to all the different contractors. But if you watch that Zuber's One Rental at a Time event, you'll get the backstory behind that. But yeah, I think there's nothing that went left unchecked. Everything at some point had to be sacrificed. So long as we were together, so long as we were working together and going through it together, the rest really just didn't matter.
So many influencers and gurus and online coaches talk about financial freedom, and they talk about getting to that retirement stage. And I think that the message that gets portrayed out there to the general populace is that if you're not already retired, something's wrong with you. It's not that hard. You should be able to retire from whatever they're selling quickly. But you said it was a 27-year chapter of your life. So, I mean, can you make it real to the people out there when they're watching content online? How are they being misled? What should they realistically expect in terms of getting to what they want?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, the way that we look at it is there's usually 3 or 4 paths to get there. And then you just have to pick the one that is the one that you're willing to, commit to. And that can be a slow and steady path. It can be a slightly accelerated path. And then it can go all the way up to the insane path, which I was on, which was push, push, push as hard as I could, everything I had into it, so long as, my wife was on board. And then it was, hey, the harder we go, the faster we try and do this, so long as we're doing the right things and not growing too fast, making sure that all the checks and balances are in place, will get us to the other side of this. But in a meaningful way where I never wanted to have to go back to work. I never wanted to have to tell her, hey, you have to go back to work. I never wanted us to be in that position. So we were blessed enough to be able to plot out the plan, run the plan, and basically get to the other side of it.
Yeah.
But it's not fast. To your point,
right.
There was, everyone who's like, well, I want to be done in 5 years. Well, who doesn't, The key to being done in 5 years is that usually you have to have gotten into the perfect market at the perfect time, right, with a perfect explosion. Right. It's the Big Bang Theory, and then you get lucky. And if you did it in 5 years, you got lucky. More likely than not, it's 10 to 15.
The best shortcut is taking the long way.
Yes, absolutely.
Just embracing it a little bit.
Exactly.
I think that's Dion's line. I can't remember.
It probably is. It sounds like it's a Dionism.
Sounds like he would say.
It does.
Well, Matt, I mean, I appreciate it, man. The last question that I would ask, and I think this is one that really a lot of people have, when they're getting near to the end of their journey towards financial freedom, kind of like where I'm at right now.
Yeah.
27 rental units. I'm bringing in some pretty good money now.
Crushing it.
How do you stress test what you've created to see if you're really ready for retirement? Because I've seen people pull the plug early and regret it.
Yep. Well, first of all, you need to get a name like King of Gary, Indiana.
Right.
That's the first thing you need to do.
All
exactly.
Day.
Perfect segue. I think the most important thing is really actually financially stress test it. Right. So you need to have certainly enough money in reserves, but I think very often people are just like, well, I've done the math on a spreadsheet, right? But next month you're not spreadsheeting it. Next month you're actually living on that income. Right. So I have an idea. Why don't you try and live on that income for 6 months and see how that goes? Mm-hmm. And so I think far too often people, ready, fire, aim. And I think that they need to spend much more time in ready, aim, fire. Right. And it's a very logical process of, if I'm about to retire and this is about to be my only income, I probably need to make sure I can live on that income for at least 6 months. Right. And you'll usually get a weathered storm or something like that you have to get through. And that's what, your savings are for. But I think that if you make it through that 6 months, that will show you, is the path, can I live this way? Is this a happy enough way for me to live? Or do I feel like I need more? And that means I need to just put off retirement a little bit longer. Mm-hmm. So I think that people just do a bad job of stress testing the retirement decision.
Mm-hmm. And they have delayed gratification for so long They're just ready to be done with the delay.
Exactly. Yeah. Just like, I'm really ready to be done now. I get it. I could have retired 12 years before I did.
Right.
I didn't. And I'm grateful that I didn't. I'm grateful I stuck it out. I still got to see a majority of my kids' lives. I now get to see all of their lives, but now we never get to think about anything like that again.
Right.
If it's doesn't matter what comes our way, we're blessed. We have the opportunity to do a lot of cool stuff. And we have a big enough portfolio where we can downsize, upsize, stay sized. Doesn't make a difference. And I think that's the thing, is that once you leave that W-2, most people think that scaling is easy at that point. A lot of times it gets more difficult, at least for the next few, unless you're big enough to where you can really show to a bank that you can shoulder that financial load.
Right. Well, Matt, I appreciate all the tips and advice around this, man. I tell you what, I am aiming for financial freedom. I've been chasing it. I'm getting close. I can taste it.
It's so close.
I'm staying patient.
I know. Staying patient. Like, you could do it now, right? Like
Barely.
you could,
It
but
would
you
be
could do
tight.
it now.
I could probably do
but
it.
you could do it now. And that's the cool thing, is that you're probably 3 to 5 years off of still when you do it. And that just means you're in that much better of a position when it happens.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's awesome.